This secret is encapsulated in 5 powerful words. Be silent anything that you want to happen. Now you might be wondering, what does it mean to be silent? And how can silence possibly bring about the manifestation of our deepest desires? My dear friends, the silence I speak of is not merely the absence of sound, but a state of being, a profound inner quietude that allows the creative power within you to work its magic. In this silence, you will find the birthplace of all creation. It is the womb of the universe, the void from which all things emerge. When you learn to cultivate this silence, to nurture it within yourself, you tap into the very source of all that is, was, and ever will be. But let me be clear, this is not a passive silence. It is not a state of inaction or resignation. No, the silence I speak of is alive, vibrant, and pulsing with creative energy. It is a silence filled with the certainty of your desire fulfilled, a silence pregnant with possibility. Imagine, if you will, a seed planted in the earth. Does it make a sound as it grows? Does it announce its intentions to the world? No, it grows in silence, pushing through the soil, reaching for the sun, all without a whisper. And yet in that silence, a miracle unfolds. From a tiny seed emerges a mighty oak, a beautiful flower, or a bountiful fruit tree. Your desires, my friends, are like that seed. They do not need to be shouted from the rooftops or constantly verbalized. In fact, the more you speak of them, the more you rob them their power. Instead, plant them in the fertile soil of your imagination, water them with the certainty of their fulfillment, and then be silent. Allow them to grow in the secret, sacred space of your inner world. This silence is not about suppressing your desires or denying their existence. On the contrary, it's about giving them the space and energy they need to manifest. When you constantly speak about what you want, when you continually focus on the lack of it in your life, you're essentially telling the universe, this is what I don't have. And the universe, in its infinite wisdom, continues to reflect that lack back to you. But when you plant your desire in silence, when you nurture it in the quiet certainty of its fulfillment, you're sending a different message. You're saying to the universe, this is already mine. It is done. And the universe has no choice but to conform to this new reality you've created within yourself. Let me share with you a story that illustrates this principle. There was once a man who desperately wanted a promotion at work. He talked about it constantly, telling anyone who'd listened about how much he deserved it, how hard he had worked, and how unfair it was that he hadn't received it yet. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and still the promotion eluded him. Then one day he heard these very words we're discussing today. He decided to try a different approach. He stopped talking about the promotion altogether. Instead, he went into the silence of his imagination. There he saw himself sitting in the new office, felt the pride and satisfaction of his new position, heard the congratulations of his colleagues. He lived from the end, experiencing the fulfillment of his desire as a present fact. In his outer world, he continued to work diligently, but he no longer spoke of the promotion. He no longer complained about not having it. He simply knew in the depths of his being that it was already his. And do you know what happened? Within a month, he was called into his boss's office and offered the very position he had been imagining. This, my friends, is the power of silence. It is the power of living from the end, of experiencing your desire fulfilled in the inner world of imagination. For when you do this, when you truly embody the feeling of your wish fulfilled, the outer world has no choice but to reshape itself to match your inner case. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Neville, isn't this just positive thinking? Isn't this just another version of the power of positive thought? And to that I say emphatically no. This is not mere positive thinking. This is not about trying to consult that something good might happen. This is about knowing with absolute certainty that what you desire is already yours. You see, in the realm of imagination, there is no future. There is only the eternal now. When you enter into the silence of your imagination and experience your desire as fulfilled, you are not hoping for a future event. You are experiencing a present reality. And it is this present experience, this living from the end, that has the power to reshape your world. Let me explain further. The world you see around you, the circumstances of your life, are nothing more than the outpicturing of your estates. Your consciousness is the only reality. Everything else, your job, your relationships, your financial situation, these are all shadows, reflections of what you hold to be true in your imagination. So when you enter into the silence and live from the end, experiencing your desire as fulfilled, you are quite literally changing your world from the inside out. You are impressing upon the subconscious mind a new concept of self, a new pattern of thinking and being. And your subconscious mind, which knows no difference between what is vividly imagined and what is actually experienced in the outer world, begins to work tirelessly to bring about the conditions that match this new self-concept. This, my dear friends, is why silence is so powerful. In silence, you are free from the limitations of your current circumstances. In silence, you are free from the doubts and fears that may plague your waking mind. In silence, you are free to be, to experience, to live as the person who has already achieved their heart's desire. But let me be clear, this silence, this living from the end, is not a one-time event. It's not something you do once and then sit back and wait for results. No, it is a state of being that you must return to again and again until it becomes your natural way of existing in the world. Think of it like this. If you were to plant a seed and then immediately after see if it had grown, what would happen? The seed would never have the chance to take root, to sprout, to grow into the magnificent plant it was meant to be. In the same way, if you enter into the silence, experience your desires fulfilled, and then immediately return to your old patterns of thinking and speaking, constantly checking to see if your desire has manifested, you rob it of the very energy it needs to come into being. Instead, you must trust in the process. You must have faith in the power of your imagination. You must know with every fiber of your being that what you have experienced in the silence of your imagination is more real, more true than anything you can see or touch in the outer world. This brings us to another crucial aspect of being silent, letting go. Once you have planted the seed of your desire in the fertile soil of your imagination, once you have lived from the end and experienced it as fulfilled, you must let it go. Release it into the hands of the universe, trusting that the same power that turns an acorn into an oak tree, that turns a caterpillar into a butterfly, will bring your desire into manifestation. This letting go is not about forgetting your desire or no longer wanting it. It's about releasing the anxiety, the doubt, the need to control how and when it will come about. It's about surrendering to the wisdom of the universe, knowing that it has infinite ways of bringing about what you desire, ways that your limited human mind could never conceive of. Remember, the universe is not constrained by what you consider possible or probable. It operates according to laws that transcend human understanding. Your job is not to figure out how your desire will manifest. Your job is simply to live from the end, to be the person who already has what they desire, and to trust in the perfect unfolding of divine timing. Now, some of you might be wondering, but Neville, what if I have multiple desires? What if there are many things I want to manifest in my life? And to that I say, wonderful. The creative power within you is limitless. It is not constrained by time or space or the number of desires you hold in your heart. However, I would caution you against trying to focus on too many things at once. Remember, the power lies in your ability to live from the end, to fully embody the feeling of your desire fulfilled. This becomes more challenging when you're juggling multiple desires. Instead, I suggest you focus on one primary desire at a time. Choose the one that, if fulfilled, would have the greatest positive impact on your life. Then enter into the silence and live from the end of that desire fulfilled. As you do this, you may find that many of your other desires naturally fall into place. For when you change your concept of self at a fundamental level, every aspect of your life begins to shift to align with this new self-concept. Let's delve deeper into this concept of living from the end. What does it really mean to live although your desire is already fulfilled? It means assuming the feeling, the state of consciousness of the person who already has what you desire. If your desire is for financial abundance, then in the silence of your imagination, feel the peace and security that comes with having more than enough. Feel the joy of being able to buy what you want when you want. Feel the satisfaction of being able to help others, to give generously. Embody these feelings so completely that when you open your eyes and return to your Santina, If your desire is for a loving relationship, then in your imagination, feel the warmth of your partner's embrace. Feel the joy of shared laughter, the comfort of deep understanding. Feel the satisfaction of giving and receiving love freely and fully. Let these feelings permeate your being so completely that you carry the energy of love with you wherever you go. If your desire is for a successful career, then in your inner world, feel the pride of achievement. Feel the satisfaction of doing work you love. Feel the respect and admiration of your colleagues. Embody these feelings so thoroughly that you begin to carry yourself with the confidence and poise of someone who is already successful. The key here is feeling. Your feelings are the secret to your power. They are the language of the subconscious mind, the fuel that powers your manifestations. When you can genuinely feel as though your desire is fulfilled, when you can maintain that feeling regardless of your outer circumstances, you have mastered the art of creation. Now I can hear some of you thinking, but Neville, this sounds like self-deception. Aren't we just fooling ourselves? And to that I say emphatically no. You are not deceiving yourself. You are aligning yourself with a higher truth, a deeper reality. You see, my dear friends, time is an illusion. The future you desire already exists in the infinite now of imagination. When you enter into the silence and live from the end, you are not creating something new. You are simply choosing to experience a reality that already exists. Think of it like this. I imagine you are in a dark room and there's a light switch on the wall. The electricity, the potential for light is already there. It exists whether the switch is on or off. When you flip the switch, you're not creating the light. You're simply choosing to experience it. In the same way, when you live from the end in your imagination, you're not creating your desire. You're choosing to experience it, to align yourself with it. This is why being silent is so crucial. When you constantly talk about what you want, when you focus on the lack of it in your life, you're essentially keeping the light switch off. You're choosing to experience the reality of not having. But when you go into the silence, when you live from the end and feel the joy of your desire fulfilled, you're flipping that switch. You're choosing to experience the reality where your desire is already manifest. Now I want to address something that many of you may be struggling with. You might be thinking, but Neville, I've tried this. I've imagined my desire fulfilled. I've tried to feel it real, but nothing has changed. What am I doing wrong? My dear friends, if this is you, I want you to know that you're not alone. Many people struggle with this at first. The key lies in persistence and in truly understanding what it means to live from the fan. You see, living from the end is not about visualizing your desire for a few minutes each day and then returning to your old patterns of thinking and being. It's about a fundamental shift in your self-concept. It's about becoming, in your imagination and in your feeling, the person who already has what you desire. This takes practice, a dedication. It takes a willingness to challenge your old beliefs and patterns of thinking. But most of all, it takes faith. Faith not in some external power, but in the creative power of your own imagination. Remember, your imagination is not separate from reality. It is the very substance of reality. The world you see around you was once only imagined. Every invention, every work of art, every human achievement began as a seed in someone's imagination. Your desires are no different. They are the seeds of your future reality, waiting to be planted in the fertile soil of your imagination and nurtured in the silence of your being. So if you've been struggling, I urge you not to give up. Return to the silence. Go deeper into the feeling of your desire fulfilled. Make it more real, more vivid, more alive within you. And most importantly, persist. Persist in the face of every contrary appearance in your outer world. For it is your persistence, your unwavering faith in the reality of your amadat that will ultimately bring it into manifestation. Now let's talk about another crucial aspect of this process, detachment. When I say be silent, anything that you wish will happen, the silence I'm referring to also includes a detachment from the how and when of your manifestation. You see, many people make the mistake of trying to control every aspect of their manifestation. They imagine their desire fulfilled, but then they start worrying about how it will come about. They start trying to manipulate people. and circumstances to bring about their desire. But this is a form of doubt. It's a lack of faith in the power of your imaginal act. True silence, true faith, means letting go of the need to control. It means trusting that the same intelligence that keeps your heart beating, that grows your hair and nails, that maintains the perfect balance of life on this planet, is more than capable of bringing your desire into manifestation in the perfect way and at the perfect time. This detachment is not indifference. It's not about not caring whether your desire manifests or not. Rather, it's about being so certain of its manifestation that you no longer feel the need to manipulate or control. It's about resting in the absolute knowing that what you have experienced in your imagination is more real than anything in your outer world, and that your outer world must, by law, conform to this inner reality. Let me give you an example to illustrate this point. Imagine you've ordered a package online. Once you've placed the order, do you sit by your mailbox day and night, worrying about whether the package will arrive? Do you call the shipping company every hour to check on its status? Of course not. You trust that the package is on its way. You go about your life knowing that it will arrive at the perfect time. This is the kind of detachment I'm talking about. Once you place your order with the universe by living from the end in your imagination, let it on. Trust that it's on its way. Go about your life from the state of consciousness of someone who already has what they desire. Now, this doesn't mean you become passive. You still take inspired action when it presents itself. But this action comes from a place of being, not from a place of lack or need. It's the natural expression of the new you, the you that is living from the end. Let's delve deeper into this concept of inspired action. When you're truly living from the end, when you fully embody the state of consciousness of having your desire fulfilled, you'll find that opportunities and inspirations naturally come to you. These are not actions you force or plan. They arise spontaneously from your new state of being. For instance, if you're living from the end of being financially abundant, you might suddenly feel inspired to start a new business venture. If you're living from the end of being in a loving relationship, you might feel moved to join a new social group where you'll meet like-minded people. These inspirations are your new state of consciousness expressing itself in your outer world. The key is to follow these inspirations without attachment to the outcome. You're not taking these actions to make your desire happen. You're taking them because they're the natural expression of who you now are in your imagination. This brings us to another important point, the role of action in this process. Some people misunderstand the principle of living from the end and think it means they should do nothing in their outer world. They believe that if they just imagine enough, their desire will magically appear without any effort on their part. But this is not what living from the end means. Living from the end doesn't negate action, it informs action. When you're truly living from the end, your actions naturally align with your desired state. You begin to act like the person who already has what you desire. If you're living from the end of being a successful author, for example, if you'll sit around waiting for a book to magically appear with your name, you write, you edit, you submit your work to publishers. But you do all of this from the state of consciousness of already being a successful author. You're not writing to become an author. You're writing because you are an author. This subtle shift in consciousness makes all the difference. It takes the struggle out of your actions. It aligns you with opportunities that support your new state of being. It allows you to act with confidence and certainty, knowing that you're not working towards your desire, but from your desire already fulfilled. Now, I want to address something that many of you may be grappling with. You might be thinking, but Neville, what about the evidence of my senses? How can I live from the end when everything in my outer world tells me that my desire is not yet fulfilled? This, my dear friends, is where faith comes in. Not blind faith, not wishful thinking, not faith, but faith based on understanding. Understanding that your senses show you the world that was, not the world that is becoming. Understanding that your imagination is the true substance of reality, and that what you see in your outer world is simply the shadow cast by your inner states. Your senses are wonderful servants, but they make poor masters. They can only show you what has been, what has already manifested. But your imagination shows you what can be, what is in the process of becoming. When you live from the end, When you experience your desire as fulfilled in your imagination, you are seeing with the eye of faith. You are perceiving a reality that your physical senses cannot yet detect, but which is nonetheless real and in the process of manifesting. This is why silence is so crucial. In the silence of your imagination, you are free from the limitations imposed by your senses. You are free to experience your desire as fulfilled, regardless of what your outer world is showing you. But make no mistake, this is not about denying your current reality or pretending that things are different than they are. It's about understanding that your current reality is the result of past thoughts and beliefs, and that by changing your inner state, you set in motion the forces that will change your outer world. Think of it like this. Your outer world is like a mirror, reflecting back to you your innermost thoughts and beliefs. When you change what's being reflected, your inner state, the reflection must change. It has no choice. This is law. So when your senses tell you that your desire is not yet fulfilled, don't argue with them. Don't try to convince yourself that what you're seeing isn't real. Instead, thank your senses for showing you what has been, and then return to the silence of your imagination where you can experience what will be. This is the true meaning of faith. It's not about believing despite evidence to the contrary. It's about knowing that the evidence of your imagination is more real, more substantial than anything your physical senses can show you. Now let's talk about something that many of you may be struggling with, the concept of time in relation to your manifestations. When I say be silent anything that you wish will happen, many of you might be wondering, but when will it happen? How long do I have to wait? My dear friends, these questions, while natural, come from a misunderstanding of the nature of time and manifestation. You see, in the realm of imagination, there is no time. There is only the eternal now. When you truly live from the end, when you fully embody the state of your desire fulfilled, you're not waiting for anything to happen. It has already happened in the only place it ever could happen, in your consciousness. The appearance of your desire in your outer world is not the manifestation. It's merely the shadow, the outer reflection of what has already occurred within you. The true manifestation, the real creation, happens the moment you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and believe in its reality. From this perspective, there is no waiting. There is only being. Being the person who already has what you desire. Living from that state of consciousness. Allowing your outer world to catch up with your inner knowing. This is why patience is so important in this process. Not the kind of patience that comes from gritting your teeth and enduring until something happens, but the patience that comes from absolute knowing. The kind of patience you have when you've planted a seed. You don't stand over it, demanding that it grow faster. You trust in the natural process of growth, knowing that in its own perfect timing, the seed will sprout and grow into a magnificent plant. Your desires are like that seed. Once planted in the fertile soil of your imagination and nurtured with the feeling of their fulfillment, they will manifest in your outer world in their own perfect timing. Your job is not to make them grow faster, but to maintain the state of consciousness of already having them. This brings us to another important point, the concept of revision. Sometimes, despite our best efforts to live from the end, we find ourselves slipping back into old patterns of thinking and being. We might have moments of doubt, or we might react to our current circumstances in ways that contradict our desired state. When this happens, it's crucial not to blame yourself or to see it as a failure. Instead, use the power of revision. At the end of each day, review the events of your day in your imagination. If there were any moments where you reacted from a state of lack or limitation, revise them. See yourself responding from the state of your wish fulfilled. Feel how you would have felt, thought how you would have thought, if your desire was already manifest. This practice of revision serves two purposes. First, it reinforces your desired state of consciousness, helping you to more consistently live from the instinct. Second, it literally rewrites your subconscious memories. Remember, your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what you vividly imagine and what you actually experience. By revising your day in your imagination, you're literally changing your past, and in doing so, changing the trajectory of future. Now, I want to address something that many of you may be concerned about. You might be thinking, but Neville, isn't this selfish? Shouldn't I be focusing on helping others rather than manifesting my own desires? My dear friends, This is a common misconception, but it couldn't be further from the truth. You see, when you live from the end, when you embody the state of consciousness of your desire fulfilled, you become more, not less. You expand your capacity to give, to love, to serve. Think about it. If your desire is for financial abundance and you successfully manifest that abundance, aren't you in a better position to help others? If your desire is for radiant health and you manifest that health, aren't you better able to care for those around you? If your desire is for a fulfilling relationship and you manifest that relationship, don't you have more love to share with the world? You see, manifesting your desires is not about greed or selfishness. It's about becoming the fullest, most expanded version of yourself. It's about aligning yourself with the abundance of the universe so that you can be a channel for that abundance to flow to others. Moreover, when you master this principle of living from the end, you gain the ability to help others in profound ways. You can teach them this principle, showing them how to transform their own lives. You become a living example of what's possible when one aligns themselves with the creative power of their imagination. So never feel guilty about focusing on your desires. Your desires are not random. They are the universe speaking to you, showing you the direction of your growth and expansion. By fulfilling your desires, you are fulfilling your purpose, becoming more of who you truly are. And in doing so, you naturally uplift those around you. Now, as we near the end of our time together, I want to leave you with a challenge. For the next 30 days, I want you to commit to living from the end of your most cherished desire. Choose one desire, the one that resonates most deeply with you, and for the next 30 days, live as though it were already fulfilled. Each night before you go to sleep, enter into the silence of your imagination. See yourself in the scenario of your desire fulfilled. Feel the feelings you would feel if your desire were already manifest. Experience it with all your senses. Make it as real and as vivid as you possibly can. Then carry that feeling with you throughout your day. No matter what your outer circumstances show you, maintain the inner knowing that your desire is already yours. Be silent about it. Don't speak of it as something you want or need. Live from the state of already having it. If you find yourself slipping back into old patterns of thinking or being, don't berate yourself. Simply revise those moments in your imagination. See yourself responding from the state of a wish fulfilled. At the end of these 30 days, you will be amazed at the changes that have occurred, not just in your outer world, but in your inner world as well. You will have developed a new habit of consciousness, a new way of being in the world. Remember, my dear friends, you are not bound by your past or by your current circumstances. You are bound only by your imagination and your willingness to live from the state of your wish fulfilled. The power to change your life, to manifest your heart's desires, lies within you. It always has, and it always will. I tell you that every test of faith you encounter is not a punishment, not a sign of abandonment, but rather evidence of your imminent expansion into greater states of being. There is an intelligence within you, call it God. Call it your wonderful human imagination that knows your capacity far better than your conscious mind ever could. Tonight, I wish to share with you the profound truth that what appears as a test is actually preparation. What seems like delay is divine timing. What feels like loss is merely the clearing away of what can no longer serve your expanded state of consciousness. The nature of tests. Let us begin by examining what we mean by a test of faith. Many of you have been taught to view these tests as God's way of determining if you are worthy. This is not so. God, being your own wonderful human imagination, already knows all that you are and all that you can be. The test is not for God's information, but for your transformation. When you find yourself in circumstances where everything you believe seems challenged, where all external evidence contradicts your inner knowing, this is not God's doubt of you, but God's invitation to you. It is an invitation to rise above the world of effects and to stand firm in the world of cause, the world of imagination. Remember the words from Scripture. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This is not mere poetry. It is a precise description of the creative process. Faith is not blind hope. Faith is the actual substance, the spiritual material from which your desires are fashioned. When your faith is tested, the very substance of your creative power is being refined, purified, and strengthened. Just as gold must pass through fire to be purified, so must your faith pass through apparent contradictions to be strengthened. The law of assumption. I have taught you many times about the law of assumption. This law states that if you assume you are what you want to be and persist in that assumption, it must become fact in your world. This is not positive thinking. This is not mere affirmation. This is the creative power that spoke the worlds into being now operating through you. But what happens when you make your assumption and then face circumstances that seem to mock that assumption? What happens when you declare, I am wealthy, and then receive an unexpected bill? What happens when you declare, I am loved, and experience rejection? What happens when you declare, I am healthy, and symptoms persist? This, my dear friends, is the test. And how you respond to this test determines the speed and manner of your manifestation. Most people, when faced with contradictory evidence, abandon their assumption. They conclude that the law has failed, that their technique was flawed, or that they themselves are unworthy of their desire. But I tell you now, with the authority of experience, that this moment of contradiction is the most crucial point in your manifestation. When the world says no to your assumption, it is not a final answer. It is a question. Will you persist? Will you remain faithful to your imagination? Will you continue to sleep in the assumption of your wish fulfilled, even when all of your senses deny it? The biblical pattern. Look to Scripture, for this pattern is revealed throughout. Consider Joseph, who dreamed of greatness only to be sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused and imprisoned. Were these not tests of his faith? Yet every seeming setback was actually a setup for the fulfillment of his vision. Consider Moses, who was called to lead his people to freedom only to face a hardened Pharaoh and a seemingly impassable Red Sea. Was this not a test of faith? Yet these obstacles became the stage upon which God's power was most dramatically revealed. Consider David, anointed as king only to spend years running for his life from Saul. Was this not a test of faith? Yet this wilderness period prepared him to rule with wisdom and compassion. Consider the pattern of the entire Bible. It is the story of promises made, promises seemingly contradicted, and promises ultimately fulfilled in ways far greater than initially imagined. The mechanics of testing. Now let me explain to you the mechanics of these tests, for understanding transforms blind endurance into conscious cooperation. When you set a new assumption, you are essentially declaring a new state of consciousness. You are saying, this is who I am now. But your physical reality, your body, your circumstances, your relationships, these are all reflections of who you have been. They are the harvest of seeds planted in the past. There is therefore an interval between the planting of your new assumption and the manifestation of its corresponding reality. This interval is not empty time. It is filled with transition, with the dissolving of the old and the formation of the new. During this interval, two things occur simultaneously. First, the conditions that no longer match your new state begin to dissolve. This often appears as loss, as challenge, as the removal of what you once thought essential. Second, the conditions that do match your new state begin to form. This often appears first as subtle changes, intuitions, synchronicities, the barely perceptible evidence that the new reality is taking shape. Most people fix their attention on what is dissolving and miss what is forming. They interpret the dissolution of the old as failure rather than as necessary clearing. This misinterpretation leads them to abandon their assumption just when it is beginning to take root. The test then is whether you will focus on what is dying or what is being born. Will you identify with the dissolving past or the emerging future? Will you be faithful to your senses or to your imagination? The scale of preparation. Now let us consider why these tests come and why they often seem proportional to the greatness of your desire. I tell you that the scale of the test is determined by the scale of the preparation required. If God is preparing you for something bigger, the preparation must match the expansion. Think of it this way. If you wish to move from a small apartment to a mansion, you would need to clear out possessions that wouldn't fit in your new home. You would need to adapt to new systems of maintenance. You would need to adjust to new neighbors and perhaps even a new concept of yourself as the owner of such a property. Similarly, if you are moving from a limited state of consciousness to an expanded one, there is preparation involved. Limiting beliefs must be cleared. Old habits must be released. Relationships that anchored you to your former self must either transform or dissolve. The greater the expansion, the more comprehensive the preparation. This is why those with the greatest visions often face the most significant challenges. It is not punishment. It is preparation. Consider the life of anyone who has achieved greatness in any field. Without exception, you will find periods of testing that preceded their breakthrough. These tests were not obstacles to their achievement. They were the very forge in which their achievement was fashioned. The rebirth process. What you are experiencing when your faith is tested is nothing less than a death and rebirth process. The limited self must die for the expanded self to be born. In John 12:24, Jesus expresses this principle beautifully. Very truly I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. Your old concept of self is the seed that must fall to the ground and die. The apparent loss, the confusion, the contradiction, these are all part of the dying process. But from this death comes multiplication, expansion, and abundance beyond what the single seed could contain. This is why Jesus also said, whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. He was not speaking of physical death, but of the surrender of limited identity for the sake of expanded being. When your faith is tested, you are being invited to lose your life, your limited concept of self, in order to find your life, your expanded awareness of who you truly are. The practical response to tests. How then should you respond when your faith is tested? Let me give you practical guidance. First, recognize the test for what it is: not punishment, not failure, but preparation and opportunity. This recognition alone will transform your experience. Second, double down on your assumption. When external evidence contradicts your inner knowing, that is precisely the moment to intensify your assumption. Do not merely maintain it, strengthen it. As darkness increases, so should your inner light. Third, look for the evidence of your assumption's fulfillment, no matter how small. There is always evidence if you train your eyes to see it. A synchronicity, a small improvement, a monadia, a moment of unexpected peace. These are the early sprouting of your manifestation. Fourth, use your imagination more vividly and more frequently. If you have been imagining your desire once a day, begin to do it 3 times. If you have been seeing it vaguely, begin to add detail. Make the colors brighter, the sounds clearer, the feelings more intense. Fifth, detach from the how and the timeline. The test often comes in the form of manifestation unfolding in a way you did not expect or on a schedule you did not anticipate. Your job is not to dictate the path or the timing, but to maintain the end, the state of wish fulfilled. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, find the gratitude in the present moment. Thanksgiving is the highest form of faith. To give thanks before the manifestation is visible is to truly live from the end. It is the ultimate declaration that your assumption is more real to you than your current circumstances. The greater purpose being prepared. Now let us consider what it means that God is preparing you for something bigger. What is this something bigger that awaits beyond the test? I tell you that the something bigger is not merely an improved circumstance. It is not just more money, better health, or a loving relationship, though it may include all of these. The something bigger is an expanded state of consciousness. God, your own wonderful human imagination is preparing you to occupy a state where you know yourself as the creator of your reality, where you move through life with the confident expectation of good, where you understand that external circumstances are not causes but effects of your inner state. This expanded consciousness is what Jesus referred to when he said, "The kingdom of heaven is within you." It is a state where you no longer live in fearful reaction to the world, but in creative relationship with it. It is a state where you understand that all power has been given unto you in heaven and earth. The tests come not to determine if you deserve this state, but to develop in you the capacity to maintain it. For what good would it do to place you in an expanded state if you lack the spiritual musculature to remain there? The pattern in your own life. I invite you now to look at your own life and identify the pattern of tests and preparation. For this pattern has been unfolding since your birth, and once recognized, it becomes a source of tremendous confidence. Think of a significant manifestation in your life or relationship, a career achievement, a personal transformation. Now look back at the period preceding its appearance. Did you not experience tests of your faith? Did you not face circumstances that seemed to contradict your desire? Yet here you are, having moved through those tests into manifestation. The very fact that you have manifested anything at all is proof that you have already passed tests of faith. Now apply this understanding to your current tests. If you have manifested before, can you not manifest again? If you have moved through tests before, can you not move through them now? The God who tested and prepared you then is testing and preparing you now. And the something bigger that awaits you is as much greater than your current desire as your current reality is greater than what you once thought possible. The law of persistent assumption. I wish to share with you now what I call the law of persistent assumption, for it is the key to moving through tests of faith into manifestation. This law states any assumption persisted in, despite contradiction, must eventually harden into fact. Notice the crucial phrase, despite contradiction. This is where most fail. They make an assumption but abandon it at the first sign of contradiction. The law never had a chance to operate because persistence was lacking. But those who understand the mechanics of manifestation know that contradiction is not denial, it is opportunity. Every contradiction is an invitation to persist more firmly in your assumption. When you persist despite contradiction, you are doing something remarkable. You are choosing your imagination over your senses. You are declaring that what you see in imagination is more real, more substantial, more trustworthy than what you see with your physical eyes. This is precisely what Scripture means by walking by faith, not by sight. It is not blind optimism. It is clear-eyed recognition that imagination precedes and shapes physical reality. The test reveals whether you truly believe this. Do you believe that your imagination creates reality, or do you believe that reality dictates what you can imagine? Your response to contradiction answers this question. The biblical promise. Let me remind you of the promise given in Scripture, for it applies directly to these tests of faith. In 1 Corinthians 10:13 we read, "No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can endure it." The word translated as temptation here can also be translated as test or trial. The promise is clear. You will never be tested beyond your capacity to endure, and within every test is embedded the means of its transcendence. This is why I tell you that the test itself contains the preparation. The very circumstances that seem to challenge your faith are actually strengthening it if you respond with persistent assumption rather than with doubt and abandonment. The way out is not escape from the test, but transcendence through it. It is the discovery within yourself of resources you did not know you possessed: patience, courage, creativity, and most of all, an unshakable knowing that what you imagine must manifest. The evidence in your senses. There comes a moment in every manifestation when the evidence begins to appear in your sensory world. This is a crucial juncture, for many stumble even here. When the first evidence appears, it rarely comes as a complete manifestation. More often it comes as a sign, a partial fulfillment, a hint of what is to come. Those who understand the law recognize these signs and give thanks for them, knowing that they are proof of the law's operation. But those who do not understand the law often dismiss these signs as coincidence or as too little too late. They continue to focus on what is still lacking rather than on what is beginning to appear. I tell you that the first evidence, no matter how small, is as significant as the full manifestation. It is confirmation that the bridge of incidents is being built between your current reality and your desired state. When you acknowledge and give thanks for this evidence, you accelerate the manifestation. You are declaring to your subconscious mind, to the God within you, that you recognize and appreciate the creative process at work. This thanksgiving does not come from a place of lack. Thank you for this little bit, but I still need more. It comes from a place of fulfillment. Thank you for this outer confirmation of what I have known inwardly all along. The ultimate test and preparation. Now I wish to share with you what I consider the ultimate test and preparation, the one that underlies all others. The ultimate test is this: can you see God in all things? Can you recognize that every circumstance, every person, every apparent obstacle is God in disguise, molding you, shaping you, preparing you? This is not abstract theology. This is practical spirituality. For when you truly see God in all things, you cease to fight against circumstances and begin to work with them. You cease to resist what is and begin to discover the gift within it. This does not mean passive acceptance of conditions you do not desire. It means active engagement with the divine purpose within those conditions. It means asking not, why is this happening to me? But what is this preparing me for? When you ask this better question, answers begin to appear. You discover that the difficult colleague is teaching you patience, that the financial constraint is teaching you creativity, that the health challenge is teaching you to value each day. These lessons are not incidental to your manifestation. They are integral to it. For the something bigger that God is preparing you for is not just a better circumstance, but a better you, more aware, more grateful, more aligned with your true nature as a created being. The role of surrender. There is a paradox at the heart of manifestation that becomes clear when we understand tests of faith. The paradox is this: to manifest what you desire, you must surrender the need for it. This is not contradiction, it is completion. You must be clear about what you desire and firm in your assumption of its fulfillment. But you must also release attachment to particular forms and timelines. Surrender is not giving up on your desire. It is giving up the limitations you have placed upon how that desire can manifest. It is trusting that the God within you knows better than your conscious mind how to bring about your good in ways that bless all concerned. This surrender is itself a test of faith. Can you trust the process even when it unfolds in unexpected ways? Can you recognize that the apparent delay or detour might be the most direct route to your manifestation from a higher perspective? Those who master this surrender discover a profound truth. What manifests often exceeds what they imagined. The relationship is more fulfilling, the career more satisfying, the solution more elegant than what they had consciously conceived. This is because your conscious desire is just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath it lies your desire for growth, for meaning, for connection, for alignment with your higher self. When you surrender, you allow the fulfillment of these deeper desires alongside your conscious ones. The community of faith. I wish to touch now on the importance of community during tests of faith, for we are not meant to walk this path alone. When your faith is tested, there is great value in connecting with others who understand the law and are practicing it. Their understanding supports yours. Their faith reinforces yours. Their testimonies remind you of what is possible. This is why I stand before you tonight sharing these principles. This is why we gather together. We are creating a community of faith, a collective field of consciousness that makes it easier for each of us to maintain our individual assumptions. In the presence of doubt, doubt flourishes. In the presence of faith, faith flourishes. Choose carefully, therefore, the company you keep during times of testing. Seek out those who will support your assumption, who will remind you of your plan till you momentarily forget it. And when you are strong, be that support for others. Share your testimonies, not to boast, but to bolster faith. Not to set yourself above, but to demonstrate what is possible for all. The eternal nature of the process. As we near the conclusion of our time together, I wish to share one more truth about tests of faith and preparation. It is this process never ends. It is not a one-time event, but an eternal unfolding. You will never reach a point where tests cease, where faith is no longer required, where preparation is complete. This is not because you are lacking or because the law is flawed. It is because expansion is the nature of life itself. As you successfully move through one test, you will set intentions for greater manifestations, which will require greater preparation, which will involve new tests. This is not a burden, it is a blessing. It is the mechanism through which infinite being experiences itself in ever-expanding ways through you. Those who resent this process remain stuck in cycles of frustration. Those who embrace it discover joy in the journey itself, not just in the destinations reached along the way. The invitation before you. And so, my dear friends, I leave you with this invitation. See the tests of faith in your life right now as evidence not of failure, but of imminent expansion. Recognize that these very circumstances that seem to challenge your faith are actually building your capacity for greater manifestation. Do not ask for easier tests, ask for stronger faith. Do not seek to avoid preparation, seek to embrace it fully, knowing that it precedes manifestation as surely as spring precedes summer. When doubt arises, and it will remind yourself that doubt too is part of the process. It is the final resistance of the old self before surrendering to the new. Welcome it, acknowledge it, and then gently return to your assumption. Remember that you are not alone in this process. The same God that tests your faith provides the strength to endure it. The same imagination that conceived your desire contains the power to manifest it. Above all, know that what awaits you on the other side of these tests is not merely the fulfillment of a particular desire, but an expanded awareness of who you truly are, a created being made in the image of God, with all power in heaven and earth given unto you. This is the something bigger for which you are being prepared. This is the prize that makes every test worthwhile. This is the truth that sets you free. And now, in the silence of your own being, I invite you to feel the reality of your desire as already fulfilled. Feel the gratitude, the joy, the love that accompanies this fulfillment. Let this feeling sink deep into your consciousness, knowing that as you assume this state faithfully, persistently, despite all contradiction, it must harden into fact in your world. For this is the law, and the law is certain. This is the promise, and the promise is sure. This is the truth, and the truth has set you free. Thank you, and God bless you all. Most of humanity lives in a state of perpetual distraction, constantly looking outward, seeking validation, approval, and change from the world around them. They focus on their circumstances, their limitations, their past failures, and the opinions of others. They give their precious attention to everything except the one thing that holds the power to transform their entire existence, themselves. But you, my dear friends, are about to discover the most liberating truth ever revealed to mankind. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are not at the mercy of external forces. You are not dependent upon the whims of others for your happiness, success, or fulfillment. You are the operant power in your world. You are the creator of your reality. And when you finally turn your focus inward, when you begin to concentrate on the magnificent being that you truly are, everything in your external world must reorganize itself to match the new image you hold of yourself. This is not mere philosophy or wishful thinking. This is the fundamental law of consciousness itself. Your outer world is nothing more than a reflection of your inner world. Your circumstances are the shadows cast by your assumptions about yourself. Your relationships, your career, your health, your financial condition, all of these are merely the outpicturing of the concept you hold of yourself in consciousness. When I speak of focusing on yourself, I am not referring to self-centeredness or narcissism. I am speaking of something far more profound and sacred. I am speaking of the recognition of your true identity, your divine nature, your unlimited potential. I am speaking of the cultivation of self-awareness, self-love, and self-mastery. Consider for a moment the person you were yesterday, the person you were last week, last month, last year. Were you not focused primarily on external conditions? Were you not consumed with trying to change your world by manipulating circumstances, by convincing others, by struggling against what appeared to be forces beyond your control? And what were the results of this outward focus? Did you achieve the lasting transformation you desired? Did you find the peace, joy, and fulfillment you were seeking? The reason external focus fails is because it is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how reality operates. Most people believe that they must first see change in their outer world before they can feel different about themselves. They think they must first receive love before they can feel lovable, must first achieve success before they can feel successful, must first accumulate wealth before they can feel abundant. This is precisely backwards. The truth is that you must first change your inner world, your concept of yourself, your assumptions about who you are and what you deserve, and then your outer world will inevitably conform to this new inner reality. This is the law of consciousness in operation. This is why when you focus on yourself, everything changes. But what does it mean to focus on yourself in this transformative way? It means to become intensely aware of your thoughts, your beliefs, your assumptions, and your self-concept. It means to examine honestly the image you hold of yourself in consciousness and to deliberately reshape that image until it matches ideals and deepest desires. You must begin to see yourself not as you appear to be based on past experiences or current circumstances, but as you truly are in your essential nature. You are not your history. You are not your mistakes. You are not your limitations. You are not the sum total of other people's opinions about you. You are a divine being having a human experience, endowed with the power to create and transform your reality through the proper use of your imagination. When you focus on this truth about yourself, when you really absorb it into the very core of your being, you begin to operate from an entirely different level of consciousness. Instead of reacting to life, you begin creating it. Instead of being pushed around by circumstances, you begin to direct them. Instead of hoping for change, you begin commanding it through the power of your focused attention. This transformation begins with the recognition that your current circumstances, no matter how challenging they may appear, are not your destiny. They are simply the outpicturing of old beliefs, old assumptions, old concepts of yourself that you have carried in consciousness. These circumstances have no power over you, except the power you give them through your continued focus and attention. When you withdraw your attention from unwanted circumstances and redirect it toward the cultivation of a new self-concept, those old circumstances must begin to dissolve. They cannot maintain themselves without the energy of your focused attention. This is why the mystics throughout the ages have taught the importance of withdrawing from the world of appearances and turning within. The process of focusing on yourself requires discipline, consistency, and unwavering faith in your own divine nature. It requires that you stop looking to others for validation and begin validating yourself. It requires that you stop seeking your good from external sources and begin recognizing that you are the source of your own good. This shift in focus is not always easy, especially in the beginning. You're being conditioned from birth to look outside yourself for answers, for approval, for solutions to your problems. You have been taught that you are small, limited, powerless in the face of a vast and often hostile world. These beliefs run deep, and they will not surrender without a fight. But as you persist in this practice of self-focus, as you continue to turn your attention away from the outer world of effects and toward the inner world of causes, you will begin to experience a profound transformation. You will discover that you have capabilities you never knew you possessed. You will find strength where you once felt weakness, abundance where you once experienced lack, love where you once knew loneliness. The key to this transformation is understanding that your attention is your most precious resource. Where you place your attention determines what grows in your life. If you focus on problems, problems multiply. If you focus on lack, lack increases. If you focus on what's wrong with you or your life, you create more of what's wrong. But when you focus on your inherent goodness, your unlimited potential, your divine nature, these qualities begin to manifest in your experience. This is not positive thinking in the shallow sense that most people understand it. This is not about pretending that problems don't exist or denying the evidence of your senses. This is about recognizing that your current circumstances are not fixed realities, but fluid manifestations of your state of consciousness. When you change your state of consciousness by changing your self-concept, your circumstances must change to match. The practice of focusing on yourself involves several key elements. First, you must learn to observe your thoughts without judgment. Most people are completely unconscious of their thought patterns, running on autopilot, thinking the same thoughts day after day. These habitual thought patterns create habitual experiences. To break free from unwanted patterns in your life, you must first become aware of the thought patterns that are creating them. Second, you must learn to question your assumptions about yourself and your limitations. Ask yourself, is this belief about myself really true? Or is it just something I've accepted without examination? Where did this limitation come from? Is it serving me, or is it holding me back? Most of your perceived limitations are nothing more than accepted suggestions that you have mistaken for life. Third, you must begin to deliberately cultivate new assumptions about yourself that align with what you desire to experience. This is where the power of imagination comes into play. You must learn to see yourself in your mind's eye as the person you desire to be. You must think from the end result, assuming that you already are what you desire to become. This practice of assumption is not mere wishful thinking. It is the conscious use of the creative power of consciousness. When you assume something to be true about yourself and persist in that assumption, despite contrary evidence, you are actually reshaping the very fabric of reality. Your persistent assumptions harden into facts. But here's where most people fail in their attempts at transformation. They try to change their outer circumstances while maintaining the same old self-concept. They want their life to change while they themselves remain the same. This is impossible. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot attract what you do not embody. You cannot experience what you do not assume to be true about yourself. When you truly focus on yourself, when you make the development of your consciousness your primary concern, everything else begins to fall into place automatically. Opportunities appear that were always there but previously invisible to you. People respond to you differently because you are vibrating at a different frequency. Solutions to long-standing problems suddenly become obvious. This is not magic. This is the natural result of operating from a higher level of consciousness. The beauty of this principle is that it works regardless of your current circumstances. It doesn't matter how dire your situation appears to be, how many times you've failed before, how old you are, how little education you have, or what limitations you think you're facing. When you focus on transforming your self-concept, when you begin to see yourself as the unlimited being you truly are, your outer world must conform to this new inner reality. This transformation is not always instantaneous. Sometimes it happens quickly, sometimes gradually, but it is always inevitable when you persist in the proper application of these principles. The key is consistency and faith. You must continue to focus on your desired self-concept, even when external circumstances seem to contradict it. You must persist in your assumption of already being what you desire to become, even when the evidence of your senses suggests otherwise. Remember, your senses can only report what has already been created in consciousness. They tell you what was, not what is becoming. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up every day to see if it's growing. You trust in the invisible process of growth, knowing that with proper care and attention, the seed will eventually become the plant you desire. The same principle applies to the seeds of new assumptions you plant in consciousness. The process of focusing on yourself also involves learning to love yourself unconditionally. This is perhaps the most important aspect of this entire teaching. You cannot create a life you love if you do not love the creator of that life, which is yourself. Most people have been taught to withhold love from themselves until they achieve certain conditions, until they become worthy, until they prove themselves deserving. This is backwards thinking that keeps you trapped in cycles of self-rejection and external seeking. True self-love is not contingent upon your performance or achievements. It is the recognition of your inherent worth as a divine being. It is the understanding that you are already complete, already perfect, already deserving of all good things, not because of what you've done, but because of what you are. When you begin to love yourself unconditionally, when you begin to treat yourself with the same kindness and compassion you would show to a beloved friend, something miraculous happens. You stop looking to others for validation because you're giving it to yourself. You stop accepting less than you deserve because you know your worth. You stop tolerating negative treatment from others because you refuse to treat yourself negatively. This shift in self-relationship creates a ripple effect that transforms every area of your life. People begin to treat you the way you treat yourself. Opportunities begin to match your new sense of self-worth. Circumstances align with your elevated self-concept. This is why focusing on yourself changes everything. But focusing on yourself also means taking responsibility for your life in a way that most people are unwilling to do. It means acknowledging that you are the author of your experience, the creator of your circumstances, the one who has been unconsciously choosing your reality through your habitual thoughts and assumptions. This can be uncomfortable at first because it means you can no longer blame others or external circumstances for your problems. However, this responsibility is also your liberation. If you created your current reality unconsciously, you can create a new reality consciously. If your past assumptions led to unwanted experiences, new assumptions can lead to desired experiences. If your old self-concept attracted certain conditions, a new self-concept can attract entirely different conditions. The practice of self-focus also requires that you learn to trust yourself. Most people have been conditioned to doubt their own judgment, to second-guess their desires, to seek external validation for their decisions. When you focus on yourself, you begin to develop an inner compass that guides you more accurately than any external authority ever could. You have within you an infinite intelligence that knows exactly what you need, when you need it, and how to get it. But this intelligence can only operate effectively when you create the space for it by quieting the constant chatter of external seeking and turning your attention inward. In the silence of focused self-attention, you can hear the voice of wisdom that has been speaking to you all along. This inner wisdom will guide you to make choices that align with your highest good. It will show you opportunities that others miss. It will inspire you with ideas and solutions that seem to come from nowhere but actually arise from the depths of your own divine consciousness. This is what happens when you learn to focus on yourself rather than constantly looking outside for guidance and direction. The transformation that occurs when you focus on yourself is not just personal, it's universal. As you change the world around you. As you elevate your consciousness, you elevate the consciousness of everyone you encounter. As you embody your highest ideals, you give others permission to do the same. This is how focusing on yourself becomes a service to all humanity. You see, the world doesn't need you to sacrifice yourself for others. The world needs you to become the fullest expression of who you truly are. It needs you to shine your light so brightly that others are inspired to find their own light. It needs you to love yourself so completely that others learn what true love looks like. It needs you to believe in yourself so absolutely that others begin to believe in themselves. When you focus on yourself in this way, you become a living example of what's possible. You become a beacon of hope in a world that has forgotten its own divine nature. You become a testament to the power of consciousness to transform reality. This is your true service to the world. But remember, this focusing on yourself is not a one-time event. It's a way of life. It's a daily practice, a moment-by-moment choice to turn your attention inward, rather than being constantly pulled outward by the demands and distractions of the world. It requires vigilance and commitment, because the old patterns of external seeking are deeply ingrained and will try to reassert themselves. Each day you must consciously choose to focus on your growth, your development, your evolution. Each day you must remind yourself of your true identity and refuse to be diminished by appearances or the opinions of others. Each day you must nurture the image of yourself that you desire to become and feed it with your attention and assumption. This is not selfish, this is sensual. Just as you cannot pour from an empty cup, you cannot give to the world what you have not first cultivated within yourself. By focusing on yourself, by developing yourself, by becoming the best version of yourself, you are actually preparing yourself to serve others more effectively than you ever could from a place of depletion or self-neglect. The changes that occur when you focus on yourself are both subtle and dramatic. Subtly, you begin to feel different about yourself and your life. You develop an inner confidence that is not dependent on external validation. You cultivate a peace that is not disturbed by outer circumstances. You discover a joy that comes from within and doesn't require external reasons to exist. Dramatically, your outer circumstances begin to shift in ways that sometimes seem miraculous to others, but are perfectly natural to you because you understand the law that governs these changes. Relationships improve or change entirely. Career opportunities appear. Financial abundance flows more freely. Health issues resolve. Dreams that seemed impossible suddenly become achievable goals. These changes occur because you are no longer the same person who created your old circumstances. You have literally become someone new through the power of focused attention and conscious assumption. You are now vibrating at a different frequency, and therefore you attract different experiences. You are now operating from a different level of consciousness, and therefore you create different results. This is why the ancient wisdom traditions have always emphasized the importance of self-knowledge and self-development. This is why the great teachers throughout history have pointed us inward rather than outward for the solutions to our problems. They understood that the kingdom of heaven is within, that the source of all good is within, that the power to transform your life is within. When you finally accept this truth and begin to live from it, when you make the cultivation of your consciousness your highest priority, when you focus on yourself with the dedication and consistency it deserves, you will discover that you have been carrying within you all along everything you have been seeking in the world outside. The love you've been seeking exists within you. The abundance you desire flows from you. The peace you crave is your natural state. The joy you've been chasing is your birthright. The success you want is already yours in consciousness, waiting to be claimed through your focused attention and unwavering assumption. This is the great secret that changes everything. You are not trying to get anything from the world. You are trying to give your inner reality to the world. You are not trying to become someone. You already are someone magnificent. and you're simply allowing that magnificence to be revealed through your focused self-attention. When you truly understand this, when you really get it in the depths of your being, everything does change. Not because the world suddenly becomes different, but because you become different. And therefore you experience a different world. The world has always been a perfect mirror, reflecting back to you exactly what you are being in consciousness. When you change what you're being, you change what you're seeing. So tonight, make the commitment to focus on yourself with the intensity and dedication that this sacred work deserves. Make the decision to turn your attention inward and keep it there until the transformation is complete. Make the choice to love yourself, believe in yourself, and assume the best about yourself regardless of past evidence or current appearances. Remember, you are not changing your life, you are changing yourself, and your life is changing as a result. You are not trying to fix your circumstances, you are elevating your consciousness, and your circumstances are being elevated as a result. You are not attempting to control the world, you are mastering yourself, and the world is responding to your mastery. This is your power. This is your purpose. This is your path to the life you've always dreamed of living. When you focus on yourself with this understanding, everything changes because you change, and you are the operant power in your world. Begin tonight, begin now, and watch as your focused self-attention transforms not just your life, but your very existence into the masterpiece it was always meant to be.